Well, hello everybody, and welcome to TalentED, the video cast that brings you the latest insights from front lines of education and leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Skansen, and today we're diving into the transformative world of some personalized education talk. And joining us is Trailblazer in the field. We've got Kisha Bellande-Francis with us, with over 17 years of experience spanning. Kisha, you have teaching, administration, consultancy. She has left an profound impact across, 25 school districts, 15 states. She is the CEO of her own consulting company and has worked on developing professional development programs in a dedicated approach to personalized education. So she has set new standards. We're super excited to have her. She's got a unique ability to connect with diverse communities, thanks to her proficiency in, let's see if I can get these right now. We've got Haitian, Creole, French, Spanish. Amazing,
Yeah,
Kisha.
thank you.
Impacting, amplifying your impact in education. So with that, Kisha, welcome to TalentED, and I'm just going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're talking to us from today, and then we'll get into some content.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join the team and to help to make more impact. That has always been my intention. What has guided me is to touch the lives of really everybody in the school. It's not just
Mm,
about students, but it's about developing teachers, developing leaders, even parents, and how do we impact them as well so that they can grow. And even our community members, really
right.
every person in the village that makes that impact for students and for our future. I started my career as a speech language pathologist. And I started working with small groups of students. And a lot of times I went into classrooms doing that. And the more I went into classrooms, the more I just felt a calling to be there. And so I decided to go back to school. I got my certificate and I became a classroom teacher, which was wonderful. I worked at the
Hmm.
elementary level for a few years and I started to feel like I wanted to make more impact. And I thought, if I could become an instructional coach and work with teachers, imagine the impact that I could make. And so I did that. I spoke to my administration and I was an instructional coach, which I loved. But after a few years, the same calling started to grow. And I thought, what if I became an administrator? Imagine the impact I could make. And so I went back to school and I got my master's in leadership and I became an administrator and I loved it. And after a few years, kind of that same thing started to bubble. And I thought, superintendent, the impact I could make.
It never
And
stops.
never stopped. So I went back to school and I got my doctorate. But during that time of being in school and getting my doctorate, I had the opportunity to become a consultant, which really tapped into me growing and feeling like I was making a national impact. I thought, oh my
Hmm.
gosh. And so I fell in love with it. And that's what I have been doing for the past 8, 9 years.
That's amazing. That's an amazing journey. And I am only imagining that these people that you have touched along the way have just been blessed to know you and to work with you. Um, just
Yeah.
a super warm and authentic, and this is why we wanted to talk with you today, because we know you got the stuff and some of the secret sauce. So let's talk a little bit about like this idea of tailored education.
Mm.
Can you share how tailored educational approaches really enhance the individual student engagement and motivation? Like, why is that important?
Well, for me, it's tailored in every way. Again, when I go into a school, it's not just working with teachers. It's starting from the top and really looking at how everything is impacted. And so my goal is to ensure that my district personnel understands their leaders and tailors their approach, their professional development to leaders as well. And how do we ensure that they're in tune with their leaders and what they need?
Mhm.
Leaders must also be in tune with teachers and what they need and how to personalize that so each person gets that individual growth. And with that, teachers as well being in tune with your students, and not just instructionally but also personally. What are their interests? What motivates them? What engages them? And tapping into our parents, speaking to parents and understanding that as well. What happens at home that engages and leads students so that they have this whole holistic perspective of their students,
Mhm.
and they're able to again be in tune with them so that their decision making is even more impactful. Teachers decision making is more impactful when it's tailored and personalized to that student so that that student has this daily opportunity to thrive.
I like this idea because when we talk about personalized learning, a lot of people will think, well, that's teacher to student and student to teacher, but you're really bringing in this idea that we personalize it by letting everybody in their educational community
Yeah.
know that student so that we can all personalize around that student needs. And that's a big task. That's a big task to bring everybody to the table, right?
Yes.
Um, So, I mean, thinking about personalized learning, this idea that inclusion comes with that.
Mhm.
How does personalized learning actually lead to more inclusive and accommodating educational environment for our students?
Well, primarily, it really helps to strengthen the number one component in education and in the classroom, and that's building a relationship. When you build that relationship with your students, they understand that you care about them. My teachers understand who I am and what my needs are. So it starts with growing that relationship and making it so deep that now you have the engagement, you have the motivation, and students are led to really tap into how they can grow because they know my teacher is
Mhm.
focused on that. And so that's that first piece of inclusion. Again, if you know them well, then you're tapping into all the aspects that will help them grow. You're ensuring that not only for the students who have challenges, which that's of course our focus, bringing everybody up to the level of success. So that student with the challenges understands my teacher wants me to reach the same high expectations that she has for everybody else. And
Mhm.
she is adjusting the instruction so that I'm getting what I need to grow. And honestly, that makes the biggest impact of all, the student knowing that. But
Mhm.
also for our high level students, for our high achievers, we sometimes don't realize that when they're practicing the same thing that they already know, right? That leads to very small growth. We're seeing their data and we're saying, oh, their data looks good. But if a student comes in at 82% and they leave at 85%, they did not reach their fullest potential.
Right.
Even though all year the data looked good for them. Of course it did. They already started strong. So it's also about enrichment. And again, if education and instruction is tailored to every student, now I'm growing everyone from the bottom all the way to the top, again, to reach their fullest potential.
Mm.
And that's where that inclusion piece matters.
It sounds like we're shifting a little bit to this idea of also autonomy and
Mhm,
responsibility for the students. And one of the counter arguments here might be, if we're personalizing everything for the student, where's the student's responsibility in this?
mhm.
To find their own path, to take ownership over their own learning. I've heard this before, so I think this is an interesting thing to think about with personalized learning is where does the intersection of autonomy and responsibility come when we do this personalization?
Well, the idea of rigor, right? This buzzword. Really, the main components of rigor are student autonomy and cognitive complexity, right? So the idea is, how do I ensure that those two things are in balance so that every student is growing? When I am ensuring that I know how to release responsibility based on where the student is and how I need them to grow, then I can slowly allow my classroom to be student centered. How am I allowing students to work together and to have that responsibility to understand what their learning targets are? What are their goals? No longer should
Mm,
things be a secret. Only my teacher knows how I need to grow. Only my teacher knows what my grades are. Only my teacher knows what my learning goal is today. That should be revealed. Students should have goals, should be setting goals, and should be understanding what they
mm,
need to do to reach those goals in the classroom. And when that is revealed, not only can they grow themselves, but they can also help to grow each other. That
right.
is what leads to the independence.
So, I mean, really, that accountability comes from transparency, and because the students can personalize because they know where they're supposed to go,
Yeah,
now they also have the accountability with it.
exactly.
Gotcha. Yes. So, I mean, these are complex concepts that we're talking about with students.
Mhm.
How does I want you to talk to us just a little bit about when we implement tailored educational approaches. Um, how does this actually promote that deeper understanding of these complex concepts?
Mm. Well, in connection to that student autonomy, we also discuss the cognitive complexity, right? We're moving so that instruction is no longer at this higher lower level where it's really just regurgitation of information.
Hmm.
We need students to be high level thinkers, especially because we're coming into or we're allowing them to come into a society that's very different from the past,
Hmm.
right? In the past, students graduated from high school, they went to work in an office, maybe in a cubicle, and that was the way of the world. But now we students are adults even are working from home, but they're really in touch with a global society. They might be working from home, but in charge of a team that's overseas. I have that a lot in my family.
Hmm.
I have family members who work from home but are in charge of a team in Paris, a team in the United States, a team in, right? And so we need them to be higher level thinkers so that they are prepared for this thinking when they come out into society. So that complexity and the application of the learning is where we need to make sure we're growing so that
Hmm.
it's not at the basic level of the regurgitation. How does the application look?
So I hear you really talking about like a long-term commitment to success here. So lifelong learning,
Yes.
making sure that our students are adaptable. I'm going to keep coming back to this. These tailored educational approaches that you're talking about. How does that actually contribute to lifelong learning and adaptability in our students?
Again, it these aspects don't just inform learning in the moment, but when student is an independent thinker, they understand how to set goals for themselves. They understand long term how what does it look like for me to set goals? What does it look like for me to understand how to get to those goals? And so that's a lifelong learning characteristic that we want
Hmm.
to grow. Students understand when there's high level thinking and that cognitive complexity, students understand I don't have to wait for someone to tell me, right? How do I use my resources? How do I ensure that I can depend on my thinking in order to grow and to
Hmm.
be this high level thinker? So it really develops characteristics that we want to see in these students as adults. So the practice of them, starting from pre-K, and I work in from early childhood all the way up to the college level. Even in pre-K, I start to help teachers understand how to lay the foundation for practicing these characteristics so that it continues to grow and to grow and to grow. And when that happens in the student's educational career throughout, they become now an adult that has practiced this thinking
Hmm.
and these characteristics.
So Keisha, where would you start? Like, let's say you were coming into a district. What does that look like? Like, where would you start? Because hearing all of this, some people might feel overwhelmed, right? So, tell me the magic of Keisha. Like, you come in, um, break it down for me. What does that look like?
Well, primarily, again, it does start with the leader. I do a lot of leader development as well, and I help the leader to see what that looks like because it's such a shift. We're making such a shift in our thinking that we have to now develop our eye onto what does that look like.
Mm-hmm.
And because the leader is the coach really of the school, even again starting with the district, right? Because they are the ones that are coaching, I help to develop their thinking on how to make that shift in their mind, but how to make that shift when they see it in the classroom as well. When they walk in, what are the pieces that I'm looking for? Because once I can develop that, then I can now coach teachers to grow in that. So it really starts with that development. And with that, I take the time to walk through the school. I come back, I set a plan, and I say, these are the areas where you're really successful. And these are the areas where we want to grow throughout the school year. So we develop a plan for what that looks like. And that might include definitely includes professional development of teachers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I ensure that I'm able to see teachers develop them as well. And it also includes all aspects of the school. How can I even start with my conditions? Are my conditions strong, right? What is the environment like? Because the environment has to be strong before I can really push instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So it even starts with that. And we take this picture on what do the conditions look like? What do my assessments look like? What does instruction look like? And what does my teacher development look like? And we set a plan for all of those actions. And then we proceed throughout the school year where I continuously visit. We develop again, we look at the plan, where have we grown, where are challenges, and then we continue to adjust it.
Personalized approach with schools, with leaders. I mean, it's at the core belief of what you do and how you approach things, which is commendable. Keisha, I want to ask you a couple fun questions. Are you ready for a few curveballs?
Fun, definitely.
So beyond beyond the classroom, let's say you could teach a class on any topic outside of education.
Mm.
What would it be and why? Like,
Um,
where's your passion lie?
well, I have a few. I'm very big on mental health and students understanding how to, again, I guess even this approach of this characteristic of um, how do I help myself to grow? And I'm very big on that. How do I create balance? And even with
Mm-hmm.
my own children, that has always been the key for me. It's never been about stay away from everything or do not, do everything. It's always been about how do I ensure I create that balance for myself, so that I'm always, again, in tune with who I
Mm-hmm.
am, with what I need, and how I can grow to get there. And so that's very important to me. In addition to that mental health, also the physical health. I'm a runner. I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Really, again, this holistic picture of who I am and how do I help myself to always be better each day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what do you do to recharge, but it sounds like you go for a run.
I do. I do. It's the best. It's the
It's the
best. That's
best.
where all the strategies come during that one.
Um, let's talk about inspiration, motivation. What's one book or a movie that has significantly influenced your approach to the way you live?
I'm actually in a book club. I and For me, it has been really kind of multiple books and multiple things that I have experienced. One book that I truly love is Tuesdays with Maury. It's
Oh,
a
fun.
Yes, I love it. And even though it's, of course, in the end sad, at the heart of it, it really taps into life and it taps into people. And that is my motivation, my drive. I'm very big on relationship
Hmm.
building. Even for me in my life, I always think about the people in my life, and when they come into contact with me, what do I leave them with? That's very
Hmm.
important. I do the same with my leaders. What do I leave my leaders with? What do I leave my teachers with? The students. When people come into contact with me, how do I help them to be better in any way?
Hmm.
And so that book is one of my top ones, and it taps into life and relationships and how to build that, how to have empathy. So yeah, I could go on
Yeah.
and on.
I would
Love it.
agree. Anytime Mitch Albom puts out a book, I pick it up and I read it. And I mean, obviously, it's not a huge commitment because you can usually do it pretty quick.
Yes,
But
yes.
that's part of the charm of it too, right? Is it is
Yes,
these nice little books and always makes you think about life and connection and
yeah,
where has your impact been?
exactly.
I enjoy those books as well.
Yes, awesome.
Um, I don't even need to know what the class would be for this next one. I'm just wondering if you could deliver a workshop any city in the world,
Oh, wow.
where would it be? Why?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think prior to becoming a consultant, I probably would have a favorite city, but for me now, after being in touch, and again, this is why consulting, when I first started it, it was such a joy. I came out of my Florida bubble, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love living in Florida, but I came out of that bubble and I was able to see education on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have really enjoyed so many cities that I didn't think I would ever visit. I was in a small town called Kalamazoo, and prior to being there, you hear of Kalamazoo. I never even know it really existed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the people were wonderful. It was just an amazing experience. So I don't know if I could choose one. I'm a big city girl. I love the city in general. I grew up in the city. So I'm always like, ooh, I'd love to be in like New York City, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like in the heart of California. Um, so I do love big cities, but I don't know if I could choose one because I've had the pleasure of meeting people from even the smallest towns, and it's been wonderful.
Well, Keisha, I should tell you then, because um, my hometown had 800 people in it, and I graduated high school with about 55 other people. So
Wow,
I'm on
yeah.
the opposite end of that. I'm from small, small, small. Uh,
Wonderful.
that's fun to hear. So before we wrap up, Keisha, do you have any upcoming projects or events that you'd like to share with listeners, or maybe even just a call to action about what they should do going forward?
Um, we want to make a shift. We just want to think about how we can make those small shifts. It's not about coming and overhauling, right? It's really just about thinking where we want to grow, where we want our students to be, and how do we make those small shifts. So, in connection to this tailored approach, making sure that we are in tune with our students and our school and our teachers, how do we make those small shifts so that we can move to grow everybody to success? That's really the big piece. And I would love to be a part of that in any way. Um, and one thing I will say is I haven't visited Minnesota very
Oh,
often. So that would some
we
cities
should
in
get you there.
Minnesota would be, yes, exactly. I really would love to be a part of that because I haven't had a chance to. But again, the urgency as
Hmm.
well. The urgency. I think that we want to ensure we're not just waiting, right? We're waiting until, or this will happen, or at this time. It really is about right now, today, and allowing everybody in the school and the community again to have that daily opportunity to thrive. They don't leave without reaching their full potential on a daily basis.
Keisha, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. That was so much fun, and I love talking with you. You're so authentic and so easy to speak with.
Thank you.
And I want to encourage our listeners um, to reach out, to connect either through School Pro or through your consultant, because you would be better off working with Keisha than not. So, with that, I'm going to say that's a wrap on today's episode of Talent Ed with our guest, Dr. Kisha Bellande-Francis. And just as a recap, we delved into some of the power of like personalized education, What does this impact on student engagement, inclusion, autonomy, understanding, lifelong learning? So with that, Dr. Bella and Bellande-Francis, I just want to thank you again for sharing your time with us. And to listeners, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and the benefits. And remember to connect with us for any booking or follow us for more discussions coming up. And with that, we're going to say stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive. Until next time, thank you, everybody. This is Dr. Scanson signing off.
Thank you.